Garreth, should we start? And yes, let me introduce you. Let me introduce Councillor Garreth Bloor. He is Head of Economic Development for the City of Cape Town, and he runs an incredibly strong team that do a lot in terms of economic development for the city. And Garreth, this is your show, so from now I'm going to hand over to you.
Well, thank you very much. and welcome everyone. Great to be on the show once again. I think, cycling is fascinating, not just for those who have a passion for cycling, but for the economic impact that it's having. And obviously that plays in a big way into a lot of the themes that underlie what we discussed today, and the impact for small business, and indeed even bigger business. If you look at some of the projections of what even one company grounded in a model of cycling is set to achieve on the back of a recent Forbes magazine article. But the interesting thing about cycling, just in opening, is along with a whole lot of projections such as Airbnb, 10 years ago they said it would be impossible that the biggest taxi company in the world wouldn't own any cars. It would be impossible that the fastest growing hospitality outfit, if you like, wouldn't own any hotels, and the mayor of London would absolutely never cycle to work, or of Cape Town for that matter, and yet how significantly the world has changed. And I think that's very, very exciting. And certainly, I suppose, a part of leading that change is you, Douglas, even simply in the way your leadership has really been helping, I suppose, South Africans understand and develop a culture of cycling, and you've led our team to victory as well. Maybe just a little bit about what you do, what you're up to, and the foundation's work.
Yeah, thanks very much. So, I started the Team MT in Quebec. I guess the dream came alive in 2007. It's all about trying to put more African riders onto bicycles and show the potential of cycling across the African continent, and see if we can succeed at the highest levels in world cycling. And actually, it started even before that in 1996 when I represented South Africa at the Olympic Games, and Josiah Tugwani won the marathon at the Olympic Games that year for South Africa. And then I came back to South Africa in 97 and started my own team with the dream of taking an African team to the Tour de France. And that the theory behind the team was that Africa has developed the best endurance runners, so why not cyclists? And it was only 10 years later that I met a guy called Anthony Fitzhenry, the founder of Quebecer, and it was that when we really thought that if we partnered with this organization, if we wanted to source talent from the African continent, it's very difficult when there aren't any bicycles across Africa. And it's not only South Africa, but across Africa. It seems that this continent is a continent of walkers, where if you own a bicycle, you're too poor to own a car, so you'd rather walk. So if we could create that icon, that Michael Jordan of cycling for Africa, then we could make the bicycle cool, and we could get more people that would want bicycles, and then we could have more talent that we could draw from across the African continent to then fulfill our dreams of supplying those kind of guys into our team. So in 2011 I gave joint naming rights to Quebecer onto our team, to an organization that actually funded and paid no money to us. And just during the Tour de France, just during the 3 weeks of the Tour de France, we raised 9.6 million rand for Quebecer. So we put just on 4,200 kids onto bicycles during the Tour de France, which was incredible. So it just shows the power of the Tour. But also when we went to the Tour de France, we didn't want to just participate, we wanted to compete. It was a dream come true just by getting there. And on the 14th of January this year, I received an SMS. Can you believe that they send you an SMS to tell you that you're in the Tour de France? They first announced all the teams on social media, and then, of course, when our team was announced as one of the wildcard entries into the Tour de France, my phone just went crazy. And then I get this SMS from a guy, Christian Prudhomme, the general manager, and he says, "Hi, Doug, this is Christian Prudhomme. Welcome to the Tour de France. Please call me." And I was like, "Really?" That's the way you get invited to the Tour. And then, then we prepared and planned for the Tour. We did an amazing job, and we were one of the most successful teams ever in the Tour de France. We were the revelation of the Tour. The organizer of the Tour de France, ASO, came to us and said that the media loved our team more than any other team. We were completely open with, anybody that wanted to come and visit the team. It's a crazy race. 2,400 media. It's shown live in 190 countries around the world. And I was just mentioning earlier that just in terms of the social media online returns that our team generated, in terms of advertiser value equivalent, it was over 500 million rand, 540 odd million rand, just in social media and online articles written about the team. So it was incredible. And then just to talk about some of our successes at the Tour, Daniel Teclohama, the first African rider of color ever to wear a leader's jersey in the Tour de France. In fact, they were our two Eritrean riders were the two first ever African riders of color to race in the 102 years of the Tour de France. So that was unique in its own right, and it was incredibly, I guess satisfying to have them in our team and compete so well. So Daniel in the first week wore the leader's jersey, and on social media he was the most followed sports person in the world, not only across cycling but across every sport, which was incredible in terms of the interest around him in that first week of July. And then Steve Cummings goes and wins the Mandela Day stage. And that was worth 70 million rand to us, just that stage, in terms of its returns on our brand and our team. So, he's become a hero across the UK and as a British rider, but of course it was massive for us. And then to get the sports ministry and SASCOC, to recognize what we've done, and Jacob Zuma as well, I guess, was amazing. The president of Eritrea as well also sent us messages of, doing amazing things for their country. So from the whole of Africa, it was an amazing team and an amazing success story, and long may it last.
Fantastic. And certainly subsequent to that, Ethiopia, who of course are well known for their running, have embarked on a program to promote cycling, saying we can get this conversion as a country. And it was amazing just to see that last week as I passed through there. One of the other things in terms of profile is ministers who's taken up cycling. One of them who wishes he could be here tonight with us, and I believe he's watching. CEOs, big leaders. Obviously, that's done something to change the brand. Why do you think the shift is happening towards cycling away from other sports, like golf, given that cycling is not necessarily niche, it's covering so many areas?
So I think, everybody today is time poor. No one has time to, play 18 holes of golf a few days a week, I guess. So you've got... The nice thing about cycling is it's not only about the four ball that you're playing with, in terms of people that you can interact with. You can interact with 30, 40, 50 people in the morning on a ride.
Fantastic.
And in a couple of hours you can be done. And I think that just the technology in cycling, people love to download stuff and they love to compete against other people. And I think there's many applications now that are available, and guys are just, I think it's just that lifestyle and those kinds of people that are trying to be healthier, wealthier, and just try and move forward in a positive way, I think, and cycling is really good to be able to to bring that lifestyle to you, and in a time where you can still spend time with your family, I guess. And there's amazing events around the country now where you can go away for weekends with your family and do cycling as well with your kids, and you can get a great experience, and it becomes a family environment. So I think both family, time precious people, and just being a healthy, great, in our climate, a great sport.
Fantastic. And just before we move on to the ne're guest, obviously we've talking millions and even billions when it comes to the impact that you've achieved through cycling. But if we can get back to some of the business principles or strategies that informed your approach to, I don't want to say monetizing cycling, because obviously it's not about revenue coming back to you, but about a much broader economic impact. But what sort of strategies, how did you start and say we're going to build something that's going to have this kind of reach?
I mean, obviously we needed the funding, right? And you needed to get partners on board that would see the return on revenue, and we've changed our focus now to have a return on business, where we connect people and network with as many people as we possibly can through our partner space. Cycling is fortunate in that it's quite a high LSM anyway in terms of its market, so and that people love it at senior levels in organizations. So you can connect those people together, you get like-minded individuals that can work together and do business together. So that kind of benefits them in terms of getting involved and putting their brand behind the team and behind the sport. And then, you on the ground, you've got guys that are that are racing all over the world, which is pretty amazing that they can connect with as well, and if you're a multinational too. But yeah, I mean, it's just it's a great sport, and people love to get behind it, I guess, but it's tough to show return on revenue. But our strategy around our team has always been, to be really well prepared and to focus, the best riders for the best races and the best conditions, I guess, and to try and do as much hospitality around that with people. But it's in my 11 years in corporate, I learned a lot around the strategy to put a team together. We have a dashboard of all of our riders, so what they put in is what they get out. And so we went to the Tour de France, and we pretty much Google Earthed the whole of France. We looked at every single stage. We focused on every rider's skills per stage, and you make your own luck sometimes, but we kind of knew what we wanted to do each day with which rider, And it's similar to business. If you prepare for meetings and you prepare for stuff in business, you get the most out of it. And so in my time, in my 11 years in corporate, I spent a lot of time focusing on that, and I think that's really helped set the strategy and the scene for our team to move forwards, I guess, in a really positive way. And it wasn't guesswork at all, but we were lucky in the tour as well. But we make your own luck sometimes.
Absolutely. Douglas, thanks very much. We're going to come back to you a little later on, but stay right here, because the next guest, by way of background, Jeffrey, who's joining us, is one of those entrepreneurs. When we speak about people who look around, identify an opportunity and meet a need, Jeffrey certainly needs no introduction. And there's something that MEDO runs. MEDO is one of the 90 organizations that the city is really fortunate to partner with and work with in helping when it comes to business development, working on the one-stop shop and the great mobile one-stop shop that is the trip, certainly around the city, being in Dunoon and Nyanga and many other places in the coming weeks. But Jeffrey, you were one of those people who went in, who saw what was going on, and who said, I'm going to take up this opportunity and develop and grow something. So if you would just run us through, a very warm welcome, run us through a little bit about what it is that you do within the world of cycling.
Thank you. So I run a company called African Public Bicycles. It's well known as Alexandra Bicycle Tours in the township of Alexandra. We started in a hockey ground where we played hockey with our coaches from different backgrounds, from France, from South Africa, from outside of Alexandra. We wanted to show them the township that we are living in, but in a different style, of course, from what other tour operators will do. So we then actually decided to do a bicycle tour where we offered the history, the culture, and the lifestyle of the township through a bicycle, where you can meet different people on a bike, talk to different people, and it went well from what it was. We had different reference. We started our website. It went through. We met Trepi in our local shopping center. It trapped us to MEDO. We were taught a lot of business skills. I came from a science background. I did science at high school, and I played hockey as a sport, and I cycled sometimes, of course. But I never had any business skills, in my mind, where I was taught a lot of business skills in MEDO. Going to the UK and working for a company called Barclays Bicycle Hire. Of course, run by and actually by the mayor of London. That system, I actually got very caught to it and tried to bring it to South Africa. We came to Cape Town. There's a lot of challenges that we actually faced on that system for over 2 years. And we tried making that system in a different way as African Public Bicycles that will help and actually create impact to the community that we are living in. As we know that in order for us to become successful as a country, we need education. And we actually tackled it to say that we actually want to impact in our community, and we want to impact with what we know. What I know as an entrepreneur is I know bicycles, and I know how to use bicycles as a business. So I then took those bicycles to different communities, rural areas especially, because those are the people who are getting a problem when it coming to education and going to school, because they cannot access to school, not because only they don't want, or because they don't have transport to go there. They might have working for an hour is not a problem. You get healthy. But it's a problem when you get late to school or when you get late from work.
It's 2.5 hours.
So that's a bigger challenge that we are having in South Africa at the moment. So we decided to tackle that problem by lending bicycles to the students. We don't give them bicycles, we lend them the bicycles. We own the bicycles, and we advertise on those bicycles. So we generate, because there's different communities, right? Some of them earn a bit of money, some of them don't earn a bit of money. So there's different product that we advertise. Sometimes events that are happening in those rural areas, we advertise them on those bicycles. So the bicycles the students collect the bicycle from one area to another area using our bicycles, of course. They connect from school to their areas of interest that they want to go to. That's what we do as a business, as African Public Bicycles at the moment.
Excellent. And I know, you know, Judy's been someone who's been from across the corporate sector and now you're into the SME space, and very proud of her own affiliation with you. And Judy, for you, having seen the whole gamut of different businesses and how industries evolve, maybe what for you has been such a remarkable aspect of watching a company like the one that Jeffrey started?
Certainly, Gareth, what we noticed about Jeff was from the first workshop that he ever attended, he really understood his marketplace. And it was phenomenal. Because how old were you at the time? 12? No. I think you were 19.
I was 19.
Yeah, 19 years old. And what he'd done is he'd put together this incredible pie chart with all the figures of how many international tourists were coming into the country through OR Tambo that he could access for Alex Cycle Tours, who were going to be staying in Sandton, from each country, which countries have got very high cultures in terms of cycling. So it was Denmark and the Netherlands and Belgium and all of that kind of thing. So he put all of that together. So he really knew who his target market was. And also very soon after that, went to KLM, the World Dutch Airline, and said, I would like to advertise in your online magazine, your on-flight magazine. I'd like to engage with you. And I mean, still today, a number of their crews systematically come through on your cycle tours because they love cycling. But the thing is that they don't necessarily want to go to a health club to sit on a stationary bicycle. What they want to do is that they want to have some kind of environment. And I think also, you know, Alex is actually a lot hillier than we think it is. You know, everybody thinks that Joburg's completely flat, but it's not. It's actually pretty hilly. And I think for Dutch cyclists, it's quite nice to get a few hills every now and then. You know, thinking of, because they come from such a flat country. Yes, so I think that's really what it was, is that Jeff has got an incredibly good grasp of who his target market is, what the pricing points can be in his market, and also the whole value proposition in terms of the history, the experience, and all of that kind of thing. So it's very much a business. Absolutely. This is not a hobby for Jeff. Obviously, you have to be passionate about what you do, otherwise you can't do it successfully. But certainly it's very much the business model. And Jeff came with us on a UK visit. We run an international trade program twice a year, and you came with us in 2013, I think it was, for the first time. We've been back subsequently with us. And seeing the bicycle sharing system in London was really an eye-opener, because suddenly here's an alternative business model.
Right.
Because tourism, as we know in Cape Town, is extremely seasonal. So being involved in the tourism industry, you need to have another business model that is delinked from seasonality.
Sure.
And so the whole thing around assisting school children, that is going to have a different season. Absolutely. Because that's when people aren't on holiday, they're riding to school. So it's a balance that Jeffrey's worked out, which is really great in order to make himself highly sustainable as a business.
Fantastic. So, I mean, Jeffrey, you get the fundamentals in place, you expand internationally, both yourself going there, building market share, doing the advertising, and of course, when you become successful and profitable, people talk about giving back, which we know is a very big theme in our country. But one of the things that was striking in reading your story before I even got to meet you was the extent to which that whole social inclusiveness component is inherent to your business. Yes. And the fact that people have a window into the world of South Africa, but also the lives of fellow South Africans, that doesn't come through many other means, some would say any other mean than cycling. Do you have any particularly fun stories that people experiences people had that they relate to you, which really speak to that aspect of building an inclusive society through your business?
Mm-hmm. So I've got a lot of clients at the moment that are actually, I think, coming continuously in the business. You know, that's quite good. That's quite good if you have a repeat business from someone, and it shows that it's not only if like talking about the tourism side of the business, it's not only a tour where you want to come and just see once and go out. It's more of engagement. You know, you get to make a friend. You get to I'll say. I'll talk about my coach on the side here. He's one of the people who came for my tour the first time, To be honest with you, if he could tell you about the tour that he went through, it's an eye-opening to a lot of people. Alexandra is just a street away from Sandton, which is the economic hub of Africa at the moment, and a lot of people don't want to go to. They don't want to go to Alexandra because of the stigma that we have, or the stories that we hear, which is most of them not true. And we when people come there, they actually feel a bit of I'll say different, or they think a bit different with the township. And I would like my coach just to say something about how he felt when he came to.
Don't you please want
Please
to
come take a
join
seat.
us?
Welcome.
Thank you. This was a little unexpected. But yes, I'll happily say something about the first tour. I mean, my involvement with Jeff and Alexander was quite limited. I would go to the sports grounds and we would play hockey, and that was about it. And sort of when Jeff started up the tour idea, we obviously had to test it out, so we went on the first tour, and it was an incredible experience. It was just, like Jeff says, Sandton's a mere block away, yet the living conditions and the way people are living it's a massive eye-opener for someone that's never experienced it. And the way, or how welcoming all the people were, was just one of the most amazing experiences. And being able to get to places in Alexander on a bicycle, which you don't normally get to or won't see, was just made the experience that much better. So it was something I don't think I'll ever forget. And I've got no doubt that if you expose a lot more people to that sort of environment and the wonderful people that are living in Alexander, that it's bound to be successful, especially with a man as passionate as Jeff to help.
Yes. And also, I think if I can quickly come in here, is one of the insights that Jeff shared with me was that the feedback he gets from the community, whereas in the past what would happen is that foreign tourists would come and they would be in their bus or whatever with the windows firmly closed, and the doors locked, and they would drive through this kind of like Mad Max territory, and it was a little bit like being on a game farm or in a zoo. And the thing is that had a very negative impact, and it gave a very negative vibe for the community members themselves, because it was, this is actually our home, and here you come and you're invading us, and you're keeping your windows closed, and you're not buying anything from us, you're not engaging with us, or you're seeing it through the glass. Whereas now, with the cycle tours coming through, everybody is incentivized to clean up their streets, because otherwise Jeff's not going to go down their street. So they clean up their streets, they engage, they're able to sell to the tourists, they're able to provide hospitality and food and beverage. So what it's done is it's made tourism in Alex by foreigners a positive thing rather than a demeaning thing. I think, Jeff, that's what you shared with me.
Yeah, and the crazy story I've heard was we had a group from Netherlands in 2012. It was 3 ladies, and they came in for a tour. And after the tour, we all usually sit down and drink a few beers with the community. And this one vanished. There's one which went. We could not see her, and it was very scary. It was very scary that because we don't even keep an eye on you. Everyone keeps an eye on you as a community. And this one just went off, and the transport was there. We were waiting to go. First hour went on, second hour went on, and let's go to police station and report this. And this lady wants to stay and sleep in Alexander. She does not want to leave anymore. And that was the most craziest one. And we had to really force her to go out. She could come and meet her boyfriend. She will come alone. They will have to meet, without, because we don't have any accommodation at the moment in
There's a lot of accommodation.
There's a lot of accommodation.
Airbnb.
That was the craziest one we had.
Incredible.
Yeah.
What's amazing, what I love about my job, getting to meet entrepreneurs like this all the time, is that so much of what we speak about, whether it's government or academia or news commentary around inclusiveness and development, you live and you do, and it's happening every single day. What for you as an entrepreneur, intimately tied to cycling, drives you every morning when you get up? I mean, I no doubt accommodation is going to follow beyond what already exists in a different sort of setting. But what drives you? Because you obviously had a vision and a dream for something that you had to convince other people to buy in, and you did the market research, you did the analysis. Why? I suppose that's the big one.
It's the money. I'm joking.
Of course, money helps.
The money is the one of the, but you get to be your own boss sometimes, which is tough sometimes, but also good in another time. But you get to achieve some people's goals. I had some shoes that I used to love wearing. I was bought by one of my staff who worked for me for 3 years, and with his first salary, that guy, he went off and bought me shoes, which was I think half of his salary, and he bought me those shoes, and I kept them wearing them in every but now they are actually getting torn. But with the school bicycle sharing system that we are having at the moment, we gave this young guy called Emmanuel a bike, and it has changed his life a lot of time, because his family was relying on his brother, who actually used to give him money to transport him to school. And he used to go to school in Alexandra, but he used to live away from Alexandra in a place called Edenvale, which is just a walk, it's a very big long walk to there. Right. So he used to walk a lot for January, and he could not do it anymore. He was in his last grade, so he decided to quit school. So he came to me, explained the situation, to give him money for transport. I could not. I could only offer him a bicycle, and that's what I did. I gave him a bicycle, and he now is actually doing very well. He's actually working at the moment. He just graduated from matric last year. And seeing those kind of stories, for me as an entrepreneur, it makes a difference. It makes a very big impact that I wish I could actually further it more to other people as well. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I have to ask on this one, Douglas, if I may. I mean, you've been passionate about this for a long time, looking at the bigger picture, promotion of cycling. Did you envisage that we would see at this time now, let's say 5 years ago, a situation where cycling is becoming not just that sport, not just for family, but an intricate part of how we as a society do business, engage with each other, do tourism? And beyond that answer, what do you think the next 5 or 10 years hold? And I'm going to ask that of Jeffrey too in a minute, of a business perspective.
Look, I mean, I guess the process that we went through in terms of racing to put kids on bikes was something that we saw. And I mean, my son actually and I went and rode on Jeffrey's tour in Alexandria just before the Tour de France. We did the Tour of Alex before the Tour de France. Which was, I mean, same kind of crazy people at both different events, but some speaking different languages. But it was really eye-opening, and it was amazing, and it was a great experience. But, our team, we, in terms of just being mobile, having a bicycle gives you independence, gives you an opportunity to have access to school, to healthcare, to economic opportunity, to everything. So that was our passion as well, is to try and move this continent forward, to get people off their bums and being mobile so that they can just feel free. A bicycle makes you free. It you get on a bike and you ride. I mean, I started cycling at the age of 12. I rode my first cycle tour at 12. And because I was here in the Western Cape, and it just, when I was at school, it just gave me freedom. It just meant you could think to yourself, you didn't have anybody else talking around you, you could just, it just opened your mind to so many things. And I think that's what, if we can get bicycles to so many people that can't afford any other transport, and that don't have to walk, because I mean, walking is not safe anymore. If you walk through communities, if you're riding a bike, you feel much safer and less vulnerable, especially women and young girls. So I think the bicycle is amazing. And when you look at our team, and I've had some of the best riders in the world join our team, and they joined our team because of what it stands for, because of the cause. And I'm amazed at so many sports teams that they don't, and individual sports people that don't focus on a charity or on something that benefits somebody else while they're doing their sport. Because in sport, when you're in it, everybody's like, what can I get out of it? What is in it for me? What can I make, as a sports person? And only when they finish their sporting career do they realize, geez, when I was in the limelight and I was being interviewed all day, every day, because I was, hot property in whatever sport I was doing, I could have done so much more. And the only somebody else's life, and their success meant, the success for somebody else, which was pretty cool. And so, in terms of what we're doing at the moment, I think it's been amazing. We're one of the few sports teams that are really doing a lot to try and make a difference on a continent, and in South Africa especially. And I look at the next 5 to 10 years, we hope to increase that. We hope to go to many more Tour de France's, to potentially take an African rider to the podium of a Tour de France, which will be unique in cycling, and then also to try and transform cycling, because why should cycling be a European or international sport and not an African sport? And I think if we can get more bicycles into communities, and we get more corporates in South Africa to spend their social responsibility on funding, on moving people forward on bicycles, then if that happens in 5 years' time and we're doing 50,000-60,000 bikes a year, then I think I'd be happy, and I think we would have achieved a lot. And that's my dream.
Awesome. And of course, Jeff, you're not waiting for anyone else. You're doing that through the market as an entrepreneur. For your business, with cycling at the core, the next 5 years, what do you see happening? Are we going to witness expansion beyond Alex? How's that looking?
Yes, the reason why we changed our name from Alexandra Bicycle Tours to African Public Bicycles is to expand through the rest of Africa as a continent, where we can make the change. Many people were like me; they could not own a bike, and we actually giving that opportunity for them to own a bike or to have a bike next to them. So in the next 5 years, most of the African big cities will have to be there and renting out bicycles.
Brilliant. And Coach, before we go to questions, any last words from your side?
No, I mean, from my side, I haven't seen Jeff in some time, but just to kind of sit here and witness what he's been able to achieve from those years ago when it all first started is amazing, and I just think I wish him all the success in the world, and I've got no doubt that he's going to make a resounding success of whatever he ends up doing.
Fantastic. Great. Q&A. Judy, I don't know if you wanted to add an extra point, but otherwise we can go straight into it. I've seen a lot of smiling faces and nodding heads throughout the show, which has been amazing. And I know we do have a number of avid cyclists in our midst, so you've made a special effort to come through for this particular show. So shall we kick off with a brave soul on a first question?
Great. There you go.
My first question is to you, Garreth, as the guy looking after the economics in this area. What sort of impact does cycling have within the Western Cape and the Cape Town area in terms of economics and the way that people are? You look at the impact of the cycle lanes. Is there any figures on how much fuel is saved because people are cycling in and that sort of thing? I'm just interested in some of those numbers.
Sure. Yeah, well, if you look at cycling as a whole, the answer is it really goes into the billions, because you're looking at cycling events taking place which draw people from all around the world, and a massive enthusiastic cycling community that promotes Cape Town every day through social media, through sharing what they're doing, the routes they're taking, and that's really helping the city take off. In terms of the reduction in carbon emissions and moves towards what people would call a greener city, certainly the uptake is growing. And what's happened with the My City bus system is because you have the option to cycle part of the way and then, of course, get on public transportation, people are really happy to even cycle part of the route and then, of course, do that last mile of their journey or last couple of kilometers into town on the My City bus. Of course, it's become a contested political terrain because by definition, and that's lessened, which I think is fantastic. It means a broader acceptance. But when we started with bicycle lanes in certain communities, which by definition would be communities that have cars, and you're trying to get these people out their cars, some people interpreted bicycle lanes as a luxury for the rich, when in fact, of course, the greatest uptake happens in communities where you've got the most opportunity, places like Alex. So the numbers are certainly looking good. The uptake is there. We will be getting some feedback from Brett Heron, who's currently the acting mayor at the moment. So he's pretty busy at a community event tonight, but certainly a lot of those figures are coming through. But the uptake is significant. And I think if you want to get a demonstration of that, when the city was named, the best city in the world in terms of its commitment to greening and reduction in carbon emissions last year, it was driven by the behavior of citizens. It was a recognition by the World Wildlife Fund that people who live in Cape Town are actually changing how they go about their daily business. And I have to say on that point, when the New York Times said Cape Town is the best place to visit in the world, it wasn't Table Mountain and ocean and wineries. That was part of it. It was witness a city transforming itself through design. And there's no doubt that cycling played a big part in that, especially if you look at the World Design Capital projects that were premised on an uptake in cycling. So I think we could do a whole expo just to look at some of that. And certainly get those numbers out too, yeah.
Great. Here you go.
I just want to know, there's a lot of bicycle shops that have sprung up all of a sudden. And obviously people are upgrading and replacing. Now, in the old days, you could go in and you'd trade your old shoes in, they would go to someone poorer. Is there any move to recycle those bicycles to poorer communities? So someone goes and upgrades the bicycle. So the old bicycle, is there something that's like that that's around or that's been started or something to that effect?
Douglas, thank you.
Yeah, look, I mean, I guess it's regional and it happens all over. I mean, there's lots of cycling clubs that look for equipment that they can put into communities. And I mean, Jeffrey would love to have, shoes and any kit that he can get his hands on for sure, but there's not really a central point, I think, not that I know of, that is, that where you can have that kind of stuff. But I mean, I know there's events like I guess the Epic and other events, the cycle tour that probably get requests, because I'm sure the requests go to the event organizers as well. And and maybe that's something that should be thought about, I guess, in terms of where it could go. But I mean, then it decides on which region is more needy than others. But I suppose one shoe is better than no shoes. So I mean, at that stage, I guess, and bikes as well. So the problem with old bikes and what we've seen with the Quebecer initiative is that if you put old bikes that you don't want anymore that are stuck in your garage into a community, I can guarantee you within 2 months it's not going to be rideable and used, and then it hangs up in the chicken shed, and it becomes another piece of metal in a community that can't be sustained and can't be looked after and can't be supported, and so it's not used anymore. So you actually, we've had many organizations that have wanted to give us bicycles to put into the communities, but actually it becomes more of a headache than a help, because over time these kids and these students or adults that are using those bicycles that can't use them anymore, it becomes a big pain and becomes a negative thing, as opposed to a bicycle that's durable, sustainable, built for Africa and built for the community, which our Quebecer Buffalo bike is, I guess. So anyway, so it's like different focuses, I guess.
Absolutely. But I think a very good idea there that, with the big events, those can be anchors in which we start to look at these sorts of things. Yeah. Fantastic. Do I see you're in the front row? Oh, sorry, I beg your pardon. We'll come back in a minute. Thanks.
Hi, Glenn Brumberg. I guess it's a question to Dougie and to Garreth. Dougie, you mentioned the fact that we've got an endless pool of potential talent out there. Now, when we talk about economic development and infrastructural growth, how practical and how probable is the opportunity to start little businesses up in our townships and previously disadvantaged communities which focus on the sport of cycling and basically train the kids in order to get them into a feeder system which sees them coming to guys like yourself, but at the same time also educates and grows the community in a fairly sustainable manner?
Yeah, I mean, look, I think there are lots of those that are springing up all over the place, and it's around, I guess, people like Jeffrey and passionate people. I mean, you were one of those, or are one of those, that started one, and probably one of the most successful ones, in South Africa. So, there are lots of guys that have got some corporate funding that have put, I guess, BMX tracks and some other things, areas where you can, learn the skills of safe cycling, because that's the fundamental thing, I think, in the beginning, is to teach the skills of cycling so that you don't get hit by a car when you're on the bike, and as you go out from the rural community into the streets where that can potentially happen as you go far and wide. But there's many of those happening, but that's also not consolidated, and it's about individual people that have the passion to make something different and get it going. But I mean, I don't know what you guys are doing in the Western Cape that
Absolutely. Well, I think one way is you've got to create the environment that allows for that, and one measure has been open streets. And the last event that we had in Langa was amazing because you open up the street and it becomes a place for pedestrian access, but of course also for bicycle users coming from all across Cape Town into one space. And what's great is we've now moved that from the events department into the roads department, because we need, I think, to move towards a space where open streets becomes a regular part of life in the city, and you know that once a month or once a week, this street transforms into a bicycle or pedestrian thoroughfare, and it's not just one for vehicles, because around that you see a significant growth in a lot of economic opportunity, because then that street becomes a hub and transforms from residential or maybe something a bit more quieter. So I think that's proved to be quite a good model, and I'm very glad it's landed from just being a once-off into a program of the city, which is fantastic.
But something that's quite, I mean, we obviously, Songezo Jim is a rider on our team. Became the first black South African rider to race a Grand Tour this year in the Tour of Spain, and he started with Velakaya. I mean, he started in a community, you know, saw the cycle tour. I mean, he was orphaned at 12, started cycling at 14, saw the cycle tour, the Cape Town cycle tour come past, looked at it and thought, that's pretty cool, I think I'll start cycling. Didn't know how to ride a bike, got a bike, didn't know how to ride it, and then 10 years later was racing in the World Tour, living in Italy, living the dream, and now became the first black South African to race a Grand Tour in the history of cycling, which is pretty significant. So, I mean, you know, from small beginnings, you can get massive success if you stick with it and, and believe that it's possible, and then you can live the dream.
Absolutely.
On a bike.
And I think from small beginnings to massive success is quite a good intro. Coach, I'm going to ask if you leave us for a minute, and we'll bring the final guest for today's show
we
on.
Have, the question.
Before,
you hold that?
Are you happy for us to come back to the
Okay.
question? Perfect. Sizwe Nzima, please come forward. Sizwe has built a company acclaimed by Forbes magazine as its future billionaires list, as they titled us in one edition. But Sizwe's company has taken bicycles and using bicycles and that mode to deliver medication and healthcare solutions across one of the most important communities in Cape Town, which is Khayelitsha, and certainly one of the most expansive. And I understand you've had some further investment come in and a strong view to expanding your business across the continent, backed by some very big names. And you've had a few battles along the way, including encounters with government, and successfully fought to allow. Before I was elected, now disclaimers, but successfully fighting to allow. We do have an election next year, Julius, you know. He won the battle to allow him to deliver to people reliant or dependent on government. He allowed those people to have the choice to decide how they obtain their healthcare and their medication, which is not something automatically granted, and delivering through the market a solution where people can get their medication delivered to them, saving them time, saving them money, increasing their choice. And I think a great victory for South Africans as a whole. So welcome. Thanks very much for coming. I know you didn't drive here. And it's good to see you, Sizwe. Just, I mean, I suppose in a nutshell, how did you come to see cycling as the core to a business Forbes magazine would say is one of the next top 30 in Africa?
Well, for me, I grew up in a very small, or should I say, a very small community, which is down to, it's part of Khayelitsha, but it's down to, so while growing up, I never had a bike, but I've always wanted to have a bike. I still remember my first bike I had was a bike which my cousin had. So he was older than me, and then he gave that bike to me. It was pretty bad. It was really in a bad condition, but because I've always wanted to have a bike as a child, and my mom couldn't afford to buy me a bike, but I took that bike, I kept on saving money, and I fixed it. So my love for bicycles started when I was really young. Then it was that one bike that I kept for more than 5 years. So I kept on riding it around the community. We would go and race in the big highway streets, try to race where there's a lot of traffic and taxis. So the love for bicycles started when I was quite young. And when the idea came about in terms of delivering medication, I thought, what is the best effective way that we could do this? I thought about a car. Well, if you go to Khayelitsha and you go to the places where there's no streets, guess what? A bike won't go in. A motorbike won't even go in, but a bike can go in. You know those gangs in between houses? Yeah, we don't have to park the bike in the main road and then come in. No, we come in with a bike because it's very small, it's easy to go, it can go in through passages that even cars and motorbikes can't go through. And it's also easy because we've created our own short routes in the townships. There are streets, but you get that there's a shorter route to get to another place. And with a car, you have to take that long route. But with a bike, you take those short routes. So it's time, and it also allows us to navigate easily around the township because of some of the informal settlements which we have to go into. But yeah, other than that, I love bikes. I think, and it's also very cost effective in terms of petrol. The guys like Garreth, every time petrol goes up, they put their hands onto asthma all the way. I don't even worry about petrol. As long as my cyclists are fit, the only thing I worry about is keeping them fit, try and getting them to the gym. For me, that's my only priority. But yeah, I've had the love of bikes since I was young.
Fantastic. And for you, I mean, you came up, bicycles are not by default something that's integrated into the business model of everyday companies. And two questions. The first one is, when it came to your customers and fighting for their right to choice and being able to have the right to deliver medication on a bicycle, what was that like? Because you pioneered something, a red tape hurdle, you could say, that of course has been very beneficial subsequently. And I ask that because this show also includes an intersection between policymakers and entrepreneurs, because often policy lags behind innovation by definition. And secondly, maybe a bit about your expansion plans and some of your investors, some big names.
It's one of the biggest battles should I say. I'm still fighting, but things are looking very good in terms of the direction we're going to. Look, there's never anywhere in the world I don't recall where there was a delivery of medication because medication is an important element. It's people depend on those medications. So the clinic and the government took it as very something that's high priority, and because it was delivered on a bike, which technically not safe, not really reliable, and wouldn't keep the temperature, the medication at the regulated temperature. But again, I was forced to innovate, and that's the interesting part, because I still remember the law talked about a four-sided vehicle that's temperature regulated, that locks, and that's the law. Okay, there's no law that talks about a bicycle, but I had to innovate because I felt it was, the people liked the bike model because it was new, and they were also surprised at the fact that wow, we knew bicycles, we saw bicycles every day, but we didn't know that a business, could depend on bikes. And even us, our service, we could get a good service just by using bikes. Normally, the best service in Korea is always a car. Well, it does in further distances, but in shorter distances and in informal settlements, a bike is the best. And people were very excited about that, and that's why I thought, I should, stand up and try and fight with the policymakers. But I had to innovate. I still remember one things, it was the temperature box. And when the gentleman told me, you need a four-sided vehicle that locks and keeps temperature, I said, okay. I went back, I bought a motorbike box, the black ones. I went to a place that sells styrofoam material. I bought ice packs, I bought a thermometer, I insulated the box, and I put ice packs into the box, and I put medication. I put a thermometer there. I went back to him. Within 2 minutes, the minute you put that box and you close it and it locks, it's solid, it's got four sides. It keeps the temperature between 2 to 8 degrees. Doesn't have to be a car. If that's what, because I asked him, what is the main priority? Okay, keeping that medication under the good temperature. Yeah. And when he said that to me, he gave me the go-ahead to say, the most important thing is keeping that medication within that temperature. And that's what I did. I just, I didn't take away the bike.
But I think you gave yourself the go-ahead, but no one complained. Dare not. And you had your customers behind you who were saying, we want the right to be able to choose.
Yes, because we were stopped and the clinic was going to stop us. And when the clinic wanted to stop us, we actually told the clients that, I think we had about 250 clients by then, and we told the people we couldn't do the service for you anymore. And people started actually going to the pharmacist and say, are you going to pick up my medication? Are you going to send it to me? And then why are you telling people not to, you know how the old mama cocos are. They come to the counter and they shout at you. So it was like I wasn't creating beef with the pharmacist. That's what people expressed because they appreciated the service. Even though, and I still remember this one lady, that's what really inspired me. This one lady said, why should people living in town and other places get their things delivered? And just because we're living in the township doesn't mean that we can't get. If I can pay for something to be delivered, let me enjoy the rewards of having something delivered to my doorstep. Because I don't know of a courier company that is what was born from the township. And people really appreciate also that feeling of enjoying a feeling whereby they relax, they sit at home, they do their responsibilities, and they allow the important things which they are supposed to be doing or supposed to be collecting delivered to them. So it was not only just about the service, but it was about the feeling also that people got in terms of the service.
Brilliant. As empowered consumers, yeah. Fantastic.
And then to answer the second question, which is about expansion, thanks to a company by the name of Metropolitan Health, we're working with them now, and they are helping me to actually drive the business into being compliant. So what we're doing is now we are building our office, the one in Kailicha, so we're actually renovating it to get a license. So we're turning it into a community pharmacy so that you can get the pharmacy license. So once you have the pharmacy license, that allows you to dispense, handle, store, and distribute any medical products or medication. So Pharmacy Council will probably be coming to our office for inspection to come and tick all the boxes in mid-October. So that's by next year we actually now can say we can work with we can work with medical schemes, or we can work with any courier companies that want their products or medication to be delivered to their employees into the township. So now that we would be accredited and by National Pharmacy Council, things will be very good. And from there, I want to grow into a courier pharmacy, because that's technically what I am. But on top of that, I found out another opportunity, and I thought, geez, I thought I was sitting on a gold mine. Here's a diamond mine. But people have been asking me since I was delivering people for them. This one company was delivering my laptop, and I would like to share the story, but I was very insulted, but it popped an idea for me. Bought my laptop, it had to be delivered. And because the address was not well, the company couldn't deliver. The guys called me and said, we're getting lost. Can you come to the nearest police station, which is in Harare, because my area is close to Harare. And I told this guy, but why? The area, I know the area, I know it's on the map. No, but we can't find it on the map. And I went to the nearest police station. I told them, guys, are you going to refund me the money that I came here? Because I paid full amount and delivery fee. And they said, well, no, we did come and deliver. But I noticed that logistics company are actually struggling to find their ways in terms of locating the township. So what I'm developing now is I'm looking at being the prime logistics company that focuses on townships, strictly townships, where I can plug into the last mile of logistics companies. Let's not run away from it. People are now accessing, with smartphones. People are now be able to buy online. You walk around the township, you see people with smartphones, Samsung S5, Apple S5. They could buy on Amazon. They could go on Kalahari and buy. And what does that mean? Their stuff has to get delivered. Now, who would be the best person to do that job? And we know townships like nobody else. And that's what we want to do now. Not just focusing on being a courier farmers, but just, being the prime logistics company that focuses on township and trying to plug into other bigger logistics companies, your DHL, your Laser, because these are the guys that own the market, but no one owns the township market, because no one can be able to navigate the township market as we do. And that's another big opportunity that I saw in terms of while I was doing my logistics.
Fantastic. Well, thank you very much. Back to the questions. And
well, I've just been inspired to get into cycling, I must say.
Please introduce yourself.
My name is Funega, and I just wanted to ask, I suppose, the two gentlemen about their growth strategy. What does it look like? Does it look like doing franchising, or are you going to grow, organically? So is it franchise? What does it look like? What does growth look like?
Okay, so my growth is I've had a lot of people calling me. A lot of people from Soweto, Eastern Cape, Durban, because this is a problem that we're experiencing everywhere. You go to a clinic in Soweto, you're going to find the same thing. It might be even worse because there's more people in Soweto than Kailicha. So What I'm trying to do is, because the model it's got, or the business has got so much potential, I honestly think the best way is to go franchise. But you can't franchise something that hasn't worked. And because it's township based, when I franchise, so I wouldn't only be franchising the medication model, but that's where the logistics of townships comes in. So I would have created a logistics company that focuses on townships. And this would allow people living in Soweto to come and get a franchise and run, a logistics company within their own community. And the nice thing about my business is the fact that it employs the people within the community. How my employment strategy is, I don't take a guy from Mitchell's Plain and come and employ him in College. I take the guy who lives in Makaza and I let him deliver in Makaza because he knows Makaza very well than the guy who lives inside B. And they deliver within the area, and that's why I don't know why. Maybe that's the fact that we've never, yes, we carry cash all around, but we've never been robbed. We've never been gunned down to say, we'll take the money from, that we're collecting from the deliveries. So the community buy-in is also important because the community can actually see that, the people who are sitting on the corners, and correct me if I'm wrong, but for me, those guys, if you ask them where's the nearest shop, or where's this shop, they might not be good people in terms of how the community sees them, but they know that place very well because they sit around those corners every day. And I try and give them the second chance to say, let's use what you have. Let's use that local knowledge. How can you use that local knowledge to actually get you an income? So for me, it's a franchise model. I'm trying to go the franchise model that specifically focuses in township logistics in general, in everything that has to do with logistics in townships.
Fantastic. Jeff?
So I still stand with Sizwe. It's something which has not grown so far that I will say I will franchise it at the moment. It has a good potential of franchising it. We have a partner now in Zimbabwe, but who is working under African Public Bicycles, because now we are doing it in Limpopo, in Hamulepo, next to a church called Maria. That's where we are doing it at the moment. And the growth to us is teaching others who will represent us in different countries under the umbrella of African Public Bicycles. Of course, in a later stage, then improve it into becoming a franchise model.
Would you like to stand up? We have another question here, Gareth.
Great.
Please introduce yourself.
Yes, thanks. Kwanel Makele from Zenza Land Resources. Gents, I'm tired of listening about Khayelitsha. Khayelitsha is not the only township that we have. Everyone is talking about city of Cape Town, Khayelitsha. You go everywhere, Khayelitsha. NTYA, Khayelitsha. No.
He's coming to
We have challenges, the same that Khayelitsha that's experiencing in all the other townships. I grew up in Gugulethu, schooled at UCT, and then went to Johannesburg. But every time I come back, everything I hear about, like social development, including entrepreneurship, is about Khayelitsha. Like I'm thinking to myself, what has happened to, especially government? I believe this is a government problem. They think that their budget has to close the mouth of those who make the most noise.
Okay.
For me, that's not universal development. Why are we focusing on? It used to be like Khayelitsha and Mitchell's Plain. Now Mitchell's Plain is dying a little bit. I don't know why, but Khayelitsha seems to be. Everyone else wants to play someone from Khayelitsha. Why Khayelitsha? Why only Khayelitsha?
Gareth, I'm sure you've got an answer for
yeah, I
that.
think we're a couple of your neighbours in Langa with nicely landed open streets, which has been a fundamental change across the city, and there's some good projects in Googs, and I think we should bring some people on that platform. Incidentally, today in the cycling business, it happens to be that Sizwe's base is in, of course, in Khayelitsha, but Sizwe, you wanted to touch on a few expansion plans, and I know, Jeff, by definition, Cape Town's also on your mind.
Look, from an entrepreneurship, yes, there's a lot of movement happening in Khayelitsha, but there's a lot of movement happening in Gugulethu also, which is also being very publicized. Look, next week we're going to the Leavers Pioneer Foundation. And the leading people in terms of the likes, it's in terms of people go and inspire youth, which is pioneered by Levi's. And the top 10, the leading are two, Upegi from Gugulethu and me. So Upegi is doing very well. He's from Gugulethu, he's doing very well, and I salute him. So yes, there are guys from Gugulethu that I really salute to. But I think it's just that it all depends on how the community inspires the others. You know, you get to Upegi, but how can Upegi inspire the others so that the other guys from Gugulethu can just do great things? So, and that's what we've started in Kailicha. We've started a small organization that I'm sure you've been at the hub space. So what we did, we've created a group where on weekends, we go out to different, or weekdays, Fridays, we go out to different schools. We speak to school children. Now what we're trying to get more, another Caesar from out of Kailicha, you know, another Pegi from Kailicha, and so on. So that's what we do as a group of entrepreneurs in Kailicha to inspire. But from an expansion point of view, the first place I would expand to is Mitchell's Plain and Gugulethu and Philippi. Those are the only three areas because those are the closest areas to me. Mitchell's Plain, it's just close to Kailicha, Gugulethu and Philippi, which Gugulethu falls part of Nyanga and Gugulethu. So for me, I've been getting a lot of calls. In fact, the pharmacy manager at the clinic in Nyanga actually called me to say, can we have a meeting? Because people are asking, now they wanted a Gugulethu, but really structured and developed. And that's what we're doing now, you know, clinching in the part.
Chiefs having a second home ground right here in Cape Town, which is the first. and I have to say, talking about the Gugs market eventing in Gugulethu, I think we've seen some of the best entrepreneurs in that sector come out. And perhaps, Judy, when that becomes a show theme, which is a big industry, it's going to be quite good to look at the niche that's developing there.
Can I say something? My premise comes from a thinking that government, which is supposed to be putting the framework of development, is giving us the impression that everyone has to go to Kailicha to do anything. That for me is a big problem.
Garreth, we have to
Because
wrap up.
I go to the forums in most townships, including Gugulethu, where people say, we do it the way we would like to, and then we apply to government for government to approve it. I'll give an example. LED, local economic development in Gugulethu, like the mall, Gugulethu Mall. That was an initiative of a local business person, Mzulu,
Yes.
where everyone goes. He had the guts to do it himself. We have people there from all over the world. But no local authority approved it before he did it. He had to
Sorry, we're doing a live broadcast. So what I want us to do is we really need to wrap up. So if we can have this session a little bit afterwards.
But I think, but a great point. What
Address
Mzoli
it,
does is he
but
got
then
out
we
and he
need
did it.
to,
Yeah.
yes, we need to close the show if you don't mind,
Fantastic.
Gareth.
Okay, but we do have the
Respond.
networking afterwards, which I
Yes.
think is the key thing. So for those who don't come
Absolutely.
for this, come here in person. I think they've got to make
Okay.
their way out here. But I think the key point, and I think one of the underlying principles, is whatever we're transforming through business, be it cycling, the way we interact, the way we deliver healthcare, the way we develop in the case of that Gugulethu development, entrepreneurs at the forefront. And I think it's been fantastic once again to see how that has been demonstrated. And really, that I think is economics 101, that entrepreneurs are the driving force. So thank you very much to each one of you who are here with me today, particularly for you, Jeff, coming all the way from Limpopo. Douglas, I know you're pretty much all around the world on occasion, but rooted here, which is great. And Sizwe, for everything that you've done and for building a great business right here from Cape Town that's going to operate everywhere, Gugs included. Thank you very much, everyone. It's been great.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, eh?
Did you come on a motorbike?
Yeah.